What's up, everybody? Matt Moran here for another weekly update. There's lots of exciting news to go over here this week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the weekly update on location last week at Toyota's headquarters. It was a lot of fun to do it someplace different, but back in the normal office here this week. But anyway, the first news story this week here is that Ford, they were announcing some investments in their factories here this past week, and along with that, they confirmed the 7th generation Mustang is coming. And in the little teaser image there, you can see they confirmed it will have a manual once again with the gear pattern there. And I mean, this isn't a big shock or anything. We knew the 7th generation Mustang was coming. There's already been several spy shots and even leaked images of what appears to be the final design. And I already covered all those leaks in a past video, so you can check that out if you happen to miss that. But as far as this goes, just confirms the manual will be sticking around, which is good news, because in the past there were Ford employees that were quoted as saying, that the manual isn't going to stick around forever. And so, it's just good to see that it will actually get a manual here, at least at some point during the 7th generation of the Mustang. Most likely at launch. Hopefully it'll last the entire generation. I wouldn't hold your breath for that though, so if you like the 7th gen Mustang when it comes and you want to get in a manual, don't wait around either. But great to see that it has that. I wasn't too worried about the manual in the Mustang though, considering, for a, vehicle as far as manual transmissions goes, has a pretty high take rate with the Mustang. So, I assumed they would keep it around just from a sales standpoint as well. But just good to get confirmation. The manual is safe in the Mustang for the 7th generation here. And so great to see that. Another teaser image here. Cadillac has teased a couple images here of their new flagship electric sedan called the Celestiq that'll start production next year, supposedly. So this is a show car, I believe they're saying. So the wheels don't look production ready yet, but it shouldn't be a far out concept either. This should be, fairly close to production, hopefully. And it looks pretty promising from what we can see there so far. And this is the car that, by the way, was rumored to cost over $200,000. We'll see if that turns out to be true. But Cadillac's really going for the standard of the world again, of they want to have top-notch luxury, top-notch tech, and just make it a very competitive thing that goes after the ultra high-end luxury stuff. And so it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. But that'll also be the first vehicle to have the Ultra Cruise system, which will do truly hands-free driving, both on the highway and around town. So that'll be a pretty big deal as well. So anyway, but very interesting to get those teasers. In some other GM news here, they've once again trademarked the EXT name, and so if you know your history with GM, the EXT was used on the Escalade for several years, I believe from 2001 to like 2013 or something. And so my hunch is that the Escalade EXT will be returning as a luxury pickup truck. It just makes too much sense these days because there's so many people tripping over themselves to go buy these $100,000 luxury trucks that are just from normal brands. Imagine if you could actually buy a $100,000 truck from a luxury brand. I think that would make a lot more sense, honestly. And so, that's my guess. Obviously, this is just a trademark that was spotted. GM isn't making any announcements currently, but, that would be my guess. There could be other things too, like the EXT could be a name or a trim designation for, a long-range battery pack in some of their electric vehicles. Have an extended range battery, call it EXT. That could also be a totally plausible way to go with this naming scheme as well. So we'll see what they end up doing with it, but interesting to, see that they're trademarking it once again. We also this week got our first look at the Polestar 5 thanks to some EU patent images that were disclosed, I'm sure, against Polestar's wishes. And so it looks great, very close to the beautiful Precept concept car. And the official reveal should be happening sometime in the next 12 months, since Polestar is planning to have it on sale here for the 2024 model year, I believe. So, not too far away from that. But before that arrives, Polestar will be also building the Polestar 3 in South Carolina, actually. And so that'll be their first SUV, and we got our first official look at it this week with a single side shot. The full reveal, they say, will be happening on October 3rd, but in the meantime, their CEO says, with this car, we bring the sport back to the SUV, staying true to our performance roots of, Polestar 1, and that's kind of, I guess what they're going to be channeling here a little bit. There's no details about the performance yet. There was talks that, they were trying to go after, like, the future electric Macan that's coming and stuff like that. We'll see, how high it really punches, up the range. But anyway, they're planning on having performance, which is good. And they don't have any specs or anything to reveal yet, but they just say it's going to have 2 motors and a battery big enough to enable more than 372 miles of range on the easier WLTP test cycle. So whenever we do get it here, EPA will probably rate it in the low 300s or something like that. Still solid range, these days at least. And so also, you can see it looks to have headlights inspired by the Precept concept as well, and a very lean look overall. I think it actually looks really nice from what we can see so far. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it here this fall. The last little bit of Volvo news here is that they announced a partnership with Epic Games, the creator of Fortnite, to create the graphics for the screens in next generation Volvos, and likely future Polestar products as well. Since they're still kind of the same company, they're separate, but Polestar is still part of Volvo, so I would expect them to get these as well. But the graphics will be run by a new Snapdragon processor that they're saying promises performance that's 10 times faster than current Volvo infotainment systems, which aren't the quickest. So hopefully this will give them faster boot up, make sure there's no lag or anything like that. And, so that's very promising. They also say it'll be first debuting in a new flagship Volvo that will debut later this year. This is assumed to be the replacement for the XC90, but Volvo is getting rid of their old naming schemes, and it'll have real names now, so it'll be called something else, but effectively the replacement for the XC90. XC90 will stick around, but this is going to they're kind of pulling a Mazda here, being like, oh, this is the new, better one, but we'll keep the old one around for a few more years. But it's not a replacement, but then it will actually be the replacement. So that's kind of, I think, where that's going. But anyway, very promising as far as the graphics and stuff go in these vehicles. That's getting to be more and more important these days. And so cool they're announcing that partnership here. Car Scoops here has spotted the refreshed Hyundai Venue on Hyundai's website for India, actually. So some minor details may change for America here. I believe the Venue in India is a tiny bit shorter, but it's still the same basic vehicle. So most of what you see here should be arriving for the 2023 model year. So as you can see, it's sharper, a little bit more advanced looking with a grille inspired by the Palisade. There's new LED accent lights and a new LED bar in the rear connecting the more complex taillights there. Inside it looks to get digital gauges, at least as an option, and it's a pretty impressive refresh from what we can see so far. Hopefully the pricing stays pretty low, because that's really the key value component with the Venue is that it has a very nice low starting price. And if you're someone who wants that high seating position but you're okay with front wheel drive, it's a really fun little thing actually running around in. If we're only having like 113 or 120 horsepower or something like that, it actually is surprisingly peppy, and I actually, didn't mind my week with it. I thought it was actually a little bit of a, fun little runaround vehicle. So, but anyway, yeah, curious to see, more details here on this new Venue. I'm sure we'll be getting some details here for the US relatively soon. Another subcompact SUV that will actually be much larger now, that we got some more details on this week, was the 2023 Honda HR-V. So they previously already showed the styling on the outside, but now we get the dimensions as well as getting to see the inside, the performance specs, and the price. So I got that all here for you. So it's grown a lot. It's 9.4 inches longer and 2.6 inches wider too than the old HR-V. Surprisingly though, cargo volume is essentially the same as the old HR-V, because it loses the folding magic seat thing they had in the back, which really increased the cargo space and made for really deep cargo space. It's lost that depth, but now you'll have more length to compensate. So in practice, it might actually be a slightly more usable space, because you don't have to stack things as much as you did in the old HR-V. So it still should be an improvement, but as far as the numbers go, it'll be a little misleading and seem like it's about the same. But anyway, as you can see, the interior is also very similar to the new Civic, which is a great thing. Speaking of that Civic, it and the HR-V now share a platform and therefore feature a multi-link rear suspension for the first time here. It also features the same powertrain as the Civic, so it's the naturally aspirated 2-liter 4-cylinder that does 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque, which is 17 more horsepower and 11 more pound-feet of torque than the old HR-V with its smaller, I think, 1.8 liter engine it used to have. But that still is definitely on the low end for the segment. I mean, I feel like most of the stuff that this competes with, is going to be a little bit more powerful. My favorite in this segment, the Mazda CX-30, has 186 horsepower. I mean, that blows the doors off this thing, by a good margin. But I think Honda clearly they've realized that subcompact SUV buyers don't really care about power. So, put the cheapest engine in it. try and get the best fuel economy possible, and we'll see how it works out for them. Then also, though, it's going to have the extra mass. It's got to be heavier. We didn't get any kind of curb weight, I don't think, yet. But I mean, when you're adding almost 10 inches of length to a vehicle and more width and more tech and everything else, it's going to be heavier. So that might negate the power increase. Honestly, this could in practice feel slower than the old HRV possibly. I think that's entirely possible. So we'll have to see. Unfortunately, the punchier turbo motor from the Civic will not be offered, at least not currently. Maybe if enough people complain about these HRV being slow and they're willing to pay a few grand more for a bigger engine, or the more powerful engine, I should say, then maybe they'll drop it in, because I'm assuming it would fit and work, again, considering the Civic bones. We'll see. It also runs the Civic's CVT, and that's the only transmission option. Of course, no manual or anything offered in the HRV, although that would be cool. One big difference, though, from the Civic is that while the HRV comes standard with front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive is available now, too. And considering Toyota is going to be offering the Corolla with all-wheel drive for 2023, I wouldn't be surprised if this HRV all-wheel drive system somehow works its way into the Civic sometime down the road. It's not a guarantee, and maybe Honda won't bother with it, but I think since they have the technical capability now, maybe that's something they will go for. We'll see. But the standard version is front-wheel drive, but it's nice that they do offer the all-wheel drive, of course, like last gen. But with front-wheel drive, it'll do 26 mpg in the city, 32 on the highway, and 28 combined, which is also kind of underwhelming. I mean, again, this motor doesn't have much power. There's no turbochargers to, kill the fuel economy or anything. I guess it's just got to be a lot heavier or something. And then if you were to go for all-wheel drive, that drops your fuel economy by 1 to 2 mpg, depending on the metric. So, we'll see how things play out here for the HRV. But, there's a lot of stuff that competes in this segment. And, it just feels like the HRV on paper isn't coming up as, the top competitor here. We'll see. But anyway, it is also possible a hybrid version could come, since we do know that the Civic is getting a hybrid version here soon. And, again, Civic bones for the HRV here, so there's a good chance you could see the hybrid. Also, Honda's really pushing hard for hybrids here. The new CR-V is going to be debuting with a hybrid and stuff. So, I'm guessing that'll come down the road at some point, and maybe that'll certainly help with the fuel economy setup here. But regardless, last thing here is pricing. It'll be starting at $24,895 and goes up to $30,195 for a loaded EXL all-wheel drive. And all-wheel drive can be added to any trim for $1,500. So that is, an increase as well. But I think as far as the pricing goes, it makes sense. It's a much nicer interior. It's going to be roomier. It's a brand new generation vehicle. Certainly I think is, worth the extra pricing, but it'll be interesting to see how people react to that fuel economy and, the amount of power you have here. But anyway, it'll be starting to arrive at dealers this month. I will not be on the press launch for it if you're curious about the HRV, but I will be getting one as a press vehicle eventually, and I will be covering it then most likely. But moving on here, Nissan has revealed a little refresh here for the Altima for the 2023 model year. So it gets a sharper front bumper there, and I really like the new styling there on that bumper. I think it really gives a little bit extra edge. You also get standard LED headlights now. There's new wheel designs, and the SR trim gets a few sporty new touches like unique badging there. You see an SR badge on the grille now, and all the safety tech now is standard on Altimas as well, meaning blind spot monitoring, all that kind of stuff comes as standard, which is also cool, although that will most likely increase the price. The price has not been announced yet for these. But anyway, on the inside, it gets the 7-inch screen in between the gauges is now standard as well. So you get a little bit more tech there. And also the biggest upgrade is that you get a new 12.3-inch widescreen touchscreen display that replaces the old 8-inch screen you had in the Altima previously. So that's a very nice improvement, nice big screen. It now also has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And so hopefully it doesn't go up in price too much here, but there are some nice substantial improvements here, as I think it's a really nice refresh for the Altima. One other interesting note about the Altima is that it lost the Platinum trim for 2023, so I guess there wasn't much interest in a fully loaded maxed out Altima like that, so I believe that now makes the SV the top trim. So that's also an interesting little change. I guess Nissan's kind of just going for some of those lower price customers instead, and so interesting to see that. Ram has announced a new trim package called the Sandblast trim for the TRX for the 2023 model year. And so it's only appearance stuff, nothing of substance, but it gets this unique Mojave sand color, 18-inch speed lock capable wheels, Sandblast graphics, unique stitching, accents in the interior, all that kind of stuff. It's based on a level 2 trim of the TRX as well, meaning, a pretty fully loaded one. So because of that, it'll be starting at $100,080 and should be available to order soon. Another expensive car getting a new trim package this week is the Bentley Bentley Continental GT, which now adds this new S package that can be ordered for those who want a sportier V8 Continental GT. So essentially, it gives you a lot of the stuff from this Speed, which is only running the W12. It kind of gives you some of that stuff here in the V8 version. And so basically, you get a sport exhaust, the Bentley Dynamic Ride active suspension, unique 22-inch wheels in the dark trim. Inside, it also adds sports seats, unique gauge graphics, and unique trim, stitching, badging, all that usual stuff. And there's no pricing revealed for that package, but of course, Bentley buyers probably aren't going to care anyway. There's no thought of price when you're buying these types of things. So, but anyway, very cool to see that. South Korean newspaper, the Korean Economic Daily, is claiming that Genesis will actually be going after Bentley here with a new one-of-one program this month for those who want to commission their own Genesis. And so supposedly buyers will be able to change a lot. This seems like a stretch. I don't know if I believe this part of the report, but they say that you can change anything ranging from the powertrain and transmission to the seating arrangements, interior and exterior colors, and other options. So, as far as like changing the transmission, what are you going to change it to? They all run an 8-speed automatic transmission, every single Genesis. What else would you put in there? So I don't know. Some of this stuff just doesn't add up. I don't know. And also as far as engines, you have the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder. That's it these days. So again, I'm not sure where they think they're going to get extra engines from. But beyond that, though, they do say that the newspaper did add something that's sounds a little more realistic. They say that basically Genesis will start by offering custom interior colors, and then build up from there. So that makes sense. Okay, you get your custom, exterior paint color, your custom interior color. And simple things like that. That makes sense. And that's still very cool on its own. You don't have to be doing coach building cars like Rolls-Royce or something. I think, it's awesome. Genesis already offers more interior colors and exterior colors than any of its competitors, and they're awesome colors as well. But, to go one step further and then also do like paint to sample essentially for Genesis is super cool. We'll see how much it's going to cost people, but hey, give people the option. If people are willing to pay for it, test the market and see what happens, and so I think that's a pretty cool idea. It's not confirmed or official yet, so we'll see, but supposedly the newspaper's claiming that Genesis will be announcing something here this month. So we'll have to wait and see about that. But very cool to hear that nonetheless. Last week, I covered the BMW X1, which is getting an all-new generation here for the 2023 model year. So you can go watch last week's video if you missed that. But after that was revealed, BMW also revealed the electric iX1 that surprisingly we won't be getting here in the States for some reason. I'm guessing, a lot of these European electric vehicles, I think that they're prioritizing Europe because there's the heavier fines there for the fleet averages being, a little bit too high or low, as far as CO2 and stuff like that. So I think, all the European companies are feeling the crunch from EU stuff. So I think that's why, we didn't get the EQC from Mercedes and all that. So I think, maybe that's part of why I'm hoping this comes eventually, because I think it would make a lot of sense and really compete well with the Q4 e-tron, and the Mercedes EQB, all those types of things. So, we'll see if we get it eventually. But anyway, as far as, the exterior, you can see it looks basically like a regular X1, aside from the blue accents, the badging, very slight styling tweaks. It runs 2 motors for all-wheel drive and still actually does 313 horsepower and 364 pound-feet of torque when in boost mode, which would make it quicker than both the Mercedes and the Audi that this would compete with. So it's kind of the hot rod of the group here. It'll do a 5.7 seconds 0 to 60, and BMW estimates it'll be doing between 257 to 272 miles of range on the WLTP test cycle, which is a little low, but that's basically in line with what the other German competitors are doing, even though it is much less than stuff like the Mach-E and things like that. But still, solid range these days, and certainly would be worth bringing over here, I think, if, they were up for it. But anyway, we'll see, if they bring us to the States at some point. But, in the meantime, for those of you in Europe, I think it should be arriving here right around the same time as a regular X1 for 2023. And so cool to see that. Another vehicle we won't be getting here in the States is the next generation Volkswagen Amarok. And so it was teased this week for the new one. And thanks to the partnership with Ford, it now shares a platform with the next generation Ranger that we'll be getting here in the States next year. Australia has already had it for several months now, but for some reason, America is on the slow boat as far as that goes. So for those in Europe who are curious, the teaser also shows that it'll be still running a diesel V6 as an option. And they'll also have a few other diesels and one gas engine as well. And so the full reveal of that will be happening on July 7th. But even though it shares a platform with the Ranger, do not get your hopes up for this to come to the States, because it is still not built in North America. And because it's not built in North America, that means that it would be subject to the chicken tax, which is what keeps all foreign trucks out of America, essentially, unless you build them in the States or somewhere in North America. And so as a result, I don't think that this is going to happen for the States. But, Volkswagen has talked about doing a truck down the road. I think their plans are just going to do the Scout thing that I talked about a few weeks back and just have that electric truck built in the States here. And that'll be kind of their, entry, through the Scout brand. So anyway, but interesting to, see that Amarok teaser. Apple this week has teased their vision of the next generation CarPlay integration in vehicles. So as you can see, ideally they'd like to have control over multiple displays and take over everything, including the gauge cluster. It'll also be capable of controlling the HVAC functions, as you see as well. So you won't need to jump out of CarPlay anymore to change climate and stuff like that. And you can also have Siri do it. So definitely more advanced. This is basically, I feel like Apple, there's been talks about the Apple Car coming and going and how they can't get that off the ground. I feel like this is Apple's way of being like, all right, well, since we can figure out how to build our own car, let's just take over everybody else's cars. It's like, I don't know how car companies are going to react to this, because car companies like to have some control still. And if they just basically let Apple control the entire user experience, like Volvo's investing in these Fortnite companies that are, doing all these cool graphics, it's just like, who's going to win here? It's like they're doing all these other things, but like, hey, we can do really cool stuff on our own. But then Apple's like, but wait, we'll just take over everything. And I guess it's cool to give people the choice, but it's like that disincentivizes the car companies to invest in cooler graphics and stuff if they're just going to hand the keys over to Apple for everything. So we'll see how this all plays out. And obviously, most vehicles aren't going to have this kind of a screen set up for a long time, if ever. So there's, don't expect it to look exactly like that concept image. Obviously, it'll, vary depending on the vehicle and the setup. But they did show off a bunch of brands they plan to work with for this. So they're currently planning to integrate this in some form for Lincoln's, Ford's, Honda, Acura, Nissan Infiniti, Jaguar Land Rover, Porsche, Audi, Mercedes, Volvo, Polestar, and Renault. Even with those car companies, it'll be a while still, with Apple saying that the first models that'll be starting to roll this out won't even be getting it until the end of 2023. So we're talking a year and a half away before we ever even see the very first iteration of this in the brand newest whatever that runs it. I know Ford's really tight with Apple because you can now have Mach-E charging, I believe, through Apple Maps, and it's only for the Mach-E. Apple Maps does not work with the charging thing for any other electric vehicle yet. So my bet would be, like a refresh Mach-E could potentially be the first thing to use something similar to this, in this kind of an integration. But we'll see, what everyone else does. But anyway, yeah, very interesting to see that. Let me know what you think about that whole idea of Apple taking over your infotainment system completely in the comments below. Automotive News and Motor Trend are reporting a couple of scoops they got last week at Toyota's HQ Confidential event that I was at as well. And I believe some of these questions were also asked in the main larger conferences that we had and stuff. But Automotive News and Motor Trend were kind of putting these into reports, and they did some follow-up questioning that they've done here. So it's very interesting. So first off, they asked about a GR sports sedan at Motor Trend in particular. And so Toyota's executive vice president of North America told them to stay tuned in regards to a GR sports sedan. And so some outlets are taking this to suggest that they're working on a GR Camry. And that would be cool. I would welcome a GR Camry with open arms. I also think they could potentially, since its TRD Camry is kind of inconsistent these days with everything else, they could also just swap the TRD badge for a GR badge, but they do take the GR badging very seriously in that branding. So that just puts us in a tough spot as far as what do you do with a Camry, because there's nothing beyond the 300 horsepower you get from the V6 Camry that I think would fit in the in the Camry for this generation. Maybe a next generation Camry would have a bigger engine bay to do something else, but really, where else are they going to pull from? Even the RAV4 Prime powertrain is still also 300 horsepower. You go up to the Lexus stuff. You have like the twin turbo V6s and stuff. I don't think that would be realistic for a Camry at all. So, I don't know where they would go with this. They could do maybe the hybrid thing like the new RX where you have the 2.4 liter turbo and then a hybrid rear axle, have it be an all-wheel drive, crazy thing. But I mean, that's like over 400 horsepower, which would be wild in a Camry. But again, I think that's kind of reaching, and it'll be a while if that's the case, if the RX is just going to be getting it here, later this year. So I don't know. I think if I'm, kind of putting on the like bean counter hat of like, okay, well, like, what's the most cost effective thing that they can do while still adding GR models to the lineup and a sports sedan for GR? I think the obvious answer is this is going to be a sedan version of the GR Corolla. Obviously, basically everything on the GR Corolla, aside from the stuff that's on the hatch and the rear bumper, will swap right on to a Camry or a Corolla sedan. So I think GR Corolla sedan, would be my bet for next year. Toyota loves also keeping things fresh in a lineup and adding new variants to the lineup. Look at the Supra, now getting a manual a few years later. I could very easily see them being like, hey, look, we have a GR Corolla. It's awesome. But for those who don't want a hatch, here's the sedan version. And then you compete directly with the WRX, both having a trunk and having all-wheel drive and a manual and having more power than the WRX. I think they would eat the WRX's lunch, if they came out with a sedan version as well. I mean, they're probably already going to do that with the hatch. But, having that extra variant, again, wouldn't cost very much money, I don't think. Very easy to integrate, lots of parts sharing. And yet, ta-da, you got another GR awesome model that I think people would love and welcome with open arms. That would be my bet. We'll see who's right, if me or Motor Trend's right. I'd love to see a crazy Camry, but I think I just don't buy that idea for a while. We'll see, unless they do some type of completely bespoke powertrain for a GR Camry, but I have a hard time believing they could justify that with Camry sales, being relatively flat at best just because of the sedan segment, not being too hot these days. But anyway, moving on to the second scoop here from the Toyota event here. So, again, Toyota executives were asked about a compact pickup truck and, saying, hey, look at the Maverick. Like, you probably would love to get into that segment. You have lots of history with compact trucks. What do you think? And so this one, they asked several different executives within Toyota who kind of all, kind of compiled all their answers together a little bit, and everyone kind of chimed in a little bit on this. And so essentially the consensus was that they'll continue to monitor and survey Maverick and Santa Cruz buyers, along with other research to help them decide, whether or not to make a compact truck on their own, and then also what to do. Do they just follow along with everybody else and basically put a truck bed on a Corolla or something, or, or put it on a RAV4, or, something like that? Or do you actually do something a little bit more substantial and you do a compact body on frame thing, and you take a Tacoma platform but you hack it up and make it way smaller and get back to its roots or something? I think they could see some value in both approaches, and they say that there's room beneath the Tacoma for another truck for sure. So I think they're definitely game for this. It's just a matter of how they want to play that game. So we'll see what they end up doing. And one thing is Motor Trend they've reported here that one of the quotes here from the executive vice president, again, of Toyota North America, said, chances are we may have an HQ Confidential next year, so we'll have other things to talk about, suggesting that we could actually get either a concept or they could have the truck ready by next year. And if that's the case, then I would assume that it's not going to be anything that's super complex to engineer. If it's something that is going to come relatively fast, then my money would be on, it being some type of either Corolla Cross based, little truck, or a RAV4 based truck, something like that. So we'll have to see. We'll see what they end up doing. I'm still waiting for Subaru to get in and bring the Baja back. That seems like a no-brainer for them, but Subaru often likes to to not take the easy wins. So anyway, but interesting to hear about Toyota actually considering it, and also very refreshing that they're open and candid about this, and kind of just being honest about like, hey, like, there's multiple ways for us to do this. This is our dilemma. What do you think? And I really like that they're kind of, being open about that. So anyway, very interesting to hear all that. Let me know in the comments below what you would like to see as far as some type of compact little Toyota truck. And the last news story this week is that Hyundai has confirmed that the original Ioniq, the hybrid, will be ending production in July and won't be replaced. And I was kind of surprised. I mean, obviously the Ioniq has not been a strong seller over the past several years here, but with the high gas prices, like, why are you discontinuing your hybrid, your plug-in hybrid, and your electric vehicle? They're actually affordable. Like, this is the time you need that stuff more than ever. Like, even if it's not selling well, I mean, hold out a little bit of faith and a little bit of hope that it will sell better this year, I guarantee, than the past few years. Just because, one, people can't get anything else. So if there's no Priuses on the lot, it's like, all right, well, there's this Hyundai thing I can do, which does basically the same thing. I'll go get that. And, I don't know. I'm really shocked that they're discontinuing. They must need the factory for something more important. I'm not sure what the deal is, but anyway, that's the thing, is they're going to be ending production next month here. But, especially, I mean, Toyota's got to be like jumping for joy because, Honda got rid of the Insight right as gas prices are skyrocketing just a couple of months ago. The Clarity went away last year, I believe. So that got rid of Honda's plug-in hybrid sedan as well. So basically, it all goes back to the Prius. The segment that the Prius pioneered, the compact hybrid, they're still basically the only game in town. That, and also, the hybrid Corolla. We do know, hybrid Civic is coming as well down the road. But, as far as the really efficient stuff, with the funky styling, Prius is once again basically your only option in that field. So that's kind of crazy. But hey, I mean, again, Toyota's going to be laughing all the way to the bank, I think. And so kudos to them for keeping the Prius around, because this goes to show that all these trends repeat themselves, and here we're back in 2008 again with high gas prices and having the same kind of deal. So but anyway, bummer about the Ioniq. I've never driven one, so I can't really say, what it's like. Obviously, we know the Ioniq brand, this whole sub-brand, is going to spawn various electric vehicles, and that's, I guess, going to be Hyundai's answer, is just go for expensive electric stuff instead. But I think there's still a very strong market for, affordable electric stuff. And yes, they have the Kona EV, and, they have, a few other things there that are, hybrid, with all the new, Tucson hybrids coming in and stuff like that. But as far as the sedans go, I guess, it's just getting harder and harder for sedan lovers to, find some stuff here. And so it is what it is. But very interesting move there from Hyundai. And we'll see if people hurry up and snap up the last Ioniqs very quickly. But anyway, so that's the last news story. But lastly, I do also want to thank all of you who are members of the Matt Moran Motoring Club this week. We didn't have any new members this week that joined, but I do want to thank specifically Steel Gray 330 for being a member. Hopefully you're enjoying all the perks. And let me know if there's any other perks you guys would like to see. I'm always looking to, add some stuff and do some more engagement with you guys. I'll hopefully be doing another live stream here relatively soon, sometime probably later in June. So anyway, but stay tuned for, more perks, more posts, and all that kind of stuff. And if you want to join, become a member, there's going to be a link in the description. And also, if you're on a computer, there should be a button here on the video page and also on the channel page. But anyway, that's it as far as all the news this week, guys. So let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please continue to stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.